has certain meanings to it. And there's a whole range of studies too where they're looking at land as learning from country, and we do that from the university I went to with indigenous input into learning from country. There's actually a subject from that. And a lot of First Nations, Canadians, Indians are doing that. Probably if you do that, we'll have more respect for our resources and our environment in PNG rather than just letting the outside people come in and get what they need. If we have that respect and that kind of care for our land, acknowledging elders within different nations, different tribes, I think that it'll create that sense of respect and honoring those spaces. That it's not just ancestral, but God has given it to us to be good stewards. Then we got the clan and community. It's all coming from the Melanesian worldview. Social identity through family and clan. You've got that again. And the village. Customs and traditions, beliefs and rituals, and practices passed down through generations. And religion and spirituality. Christianity mixed with the indigenous or Melanesian spiritual beliefs. And I think a lot of us are sitting on that, and I can say that too for myself, because we are still there, as I was saying, the topic said the other day. Doesn't matter for me. This is my own theory. For me, doesn't matter how educated I am. That's my culture. What I've learned through the years, what the churches have gone to me, they sit on top of that. And when Christ redeemed that through his word, he didn't mean that he take this bottom bit out. No, he just redeems it and transforms it. Still sits there. So that's what we want to do. We need transformed churches. We need transformed people. I said it's like if we can sit on all those layers, you can't, people say, oh, maybe I don't believe there's law or something. No, that's part of your culture. Acknowledging it is one thing, denying it is another. You can acknowledge it, but you don't have to participate in it. And someone else asked me, but what do you do when you're a Christian? I said, that's where the Spirit of God has been given to you to help you. If something ya lundani so go golo where there's other spiritual stuff that's associated with it, I wouldn't. So I said, me done is lo bless. I'll mama lo to give me go lo stablo one plan night lo answer. No, I do blago. Me done is like solo enjoying something here. You blago in this. So you're scaling. There are certain things culturally or walking, but our position in Christ, you make those decisions. Even here, working with indigenous, they say, oh, we go and do this. This is tradition, we small people. And I said, no, it's okay. I can just observe, but I think it's for your own protection too. And I think because I've been exposed in terms of what I'm doing beside my own stuff in the spiritual warfare stuff, that you have to be very cautious about all those stuff. So religion and spirituality, you can mix those two, but it's where you draw the line. Yeah, so a lot of us, we have those two. They work hand in hand, but it's what the Spirit of God and what the script. You can see belly silo lisla. Suppose you're turmoil, or suppose you're anxious and you don't. Was someone there wanting to say something? Someone? Okay. So that's that number 4. Oral history and storytelling. We have a lot of myths too, lo story bloomil, lo yumi. I just found a book of the Tolai myths and all story bloomy blah. And you read it and say, but that was what people believed. And ancestral knowledge, a lot of that is fading away. When I was doing my research, I stayed in villages, in community settlements for weeks. And I found one guy, he was like an encyclopedia, this man. He had ancestral knowledge, lo had blame. And I was thinking, is this man in the 21st century or is living in the... Because something talk and he had split personality. This is, how will I explain that? Like he got one blaman but different person, lo him. But me sit down and respect him and na him story blame. So there are people within Olapun, they have those knowledge. And how many of us go to our elders and ask them, you talking me black story, Lord, don't. Some black story me interest. Do we find that? Find the time to do that? Economy and subsistence, gardening, fishing, you barter where you exchange, or me giving you fish that you give me tarolo busi, and me plan no tarolo nambis. We have that. Well, I love binding come down when I was a kid, even when I went home. All sakam salim lo mi pla giving all something do nambis. And we share. We are a culture of sharing. Reciprocity will cover that. It's one of the values that Melanesian has. We give and they give. We reciprocate that. We have leadership and authority, chiefs and elders, and community decision making. They make those decisions. There's always people in the community. And now with the influence of the outside, with the manya walking, decide lo tasolia, no talk mi blah. And you'll see that with land, you'll see that that's where conflict happens, because we had our own systems of authority in big man is that. And if this individualistic competitive spirit comes in, then I'm not passing blame me. I'll just stop with this one and then I'll let you guys to stretch your leg a bit. A language, local language. Suppose no our language, but you learn. We've tried the vernacular law, teaching law school. But I was talking to one of the education specialists. She came down to do a master's law here. And I said, we've tried, you've left outcome-based education, now it's to something else. Have you ever tried actually using local languages to debates, to make decisions, you will find it's something we're familiar with, you jump off from that into English. How can you train kids straight from there to there? Because language is important. As I was doing my research, my models were all in Cornwall, but with the English brackets into it. And my supervisor was the First Nation Canadian. He said, Tandy, you're blessed. You're lucky to have your language. I said, oh yeah. We were colonized, but we were left alone. First Nations of here, the Maoris still have their language too. They're doing a lot more to restore their languages. First Nations Canadians, they're doing the same. At PNG, we're blessed. We still have our 800 plus languages. They came, colonized us, but no one settled in PNG. Would be different story. But the local languages, a lot of us, I don't know what you think, your thinking pattern. I always translate stuff. I said, what's this in my language? And I was just saying to Roland when my supervisor was saying, Tandy, you have to move on. And I said, no, I don't have to. I have to understand this in my language first before I move on. That was one of the terminology in the research. I had to understand epistemology, which is the knowledge base. Because a lot of researchers always say, Kisimbo dasol na borrowing na go. No, that me no borrowing, me must understand it. So language is important. You share too. You share lo people lo language too. If we me go lo place, me talk. Even Roland me preach lo talk place, blow me lo place. A man lo talk to lie. Couldn't. Last time I play go no got JJ I pull up, all picking his eye lab lamps I talk yeah. All sit down low hallway na hari money to talk. White money in talk place here. So languages, even for us in Africa, we had to learn the language. But when I spoke, they said, Mama, I'm come up here. I must have blah up here. I must was white Mary come away. Because language opened doors for you. You speak the language of the people. It's like when you go as evangelist, you unpack that worldview, it's through language. Language too is one of the key to open them. So it's shaping that thought. Local language is shaping thought, values, and communication. And we, with our languages, they are not dialects, they are languages on their own. Oh man. As I was saying, I think God walk in Tower of Babel, and I'm listening to him now. That's why we have so many languages. Hey, I'll give you guys a break unless anyone wants to say anything. Stretch your leg a bit. So there's a lot of stuff, but I think you can understand, you can take a lot of what me say, and me trying to explaining the topics and unpacking like Lego law, you black is sorry. So that's factors shaping Melanesian worldview. Okay, when you come back from your break, we look at the ministry implications of all that. You play like go malalo, you go straight. Or anyone wants to say anything or ask a question? Don't tell me if I'm going too fast, just tell me.
Ready? One question in late.
Okay.
Can you go back to a Christian worldview versus other worldview?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are two kind of group. So as we CLTC students, how will we going to apply both towards our communities? This is my question.
So that's your question, eh? Who's asking the question? What's your name?
Derek,
Derek, okay. Yeah, that's a good question, Derek. How do you do that? Worldview, what creates meaning for people and community doesn't get touched. So you as a church, and now this is where the storytelling comes in. You are in Storyblog online. This storytelling too, we need to nurture it. We need to create it in our church. I think today you will see there's so much influence that have come in to take over that time that was spent in family time or church time. Mobile phone take over, computer take over. So for you, how would you do that? Where do you start? Those are big questions. You can do it either way. You can do a practical arm to that, holistic approach to that. Those of you who are doing CT, the integral ministry within that you're not just talking, preaching at people, but you're working with them, and the gospel will walk across that. The ministry said that's your hidden worldview. No middle namelia you to my intentions are this, but I want to get this across through a practical arm. Or you form relationships by just paramaning people, harim story blow. I think that's one of the things we don't go deeper as church people, as pastors. We take the easy options. We preach at people, but do we go back and sit in a harim story blow? So I was saying to the cultural anthropology students, why isn't the church growing? Because the pastoral care is lacking, isn't it? When you talk about pastoral care, you should know about your congregation. You go visits, home visits, go story one time more, go kakai one time more. We've modernized a lot of the stuff that you sit in your fancy houses. So, and so, me, Pastor Mewsam, you walk the talk. What Jesus did. It's about relationship building. And I said, this is interesting because why churches are not growing because the pastoral case doesn't exist. But that's you could almost, as I was looking at this, I said, man, if that worldview was all God-coded, God's principles. But because our culture is embedded in so much, that how do you have, what kind of spade or pick how you would dig through that? Because that's that 90% that's buried. How do you get to that? I remember was asked to talk to the graduates at CLTC one year. All just asking me, so what I did, I just had an A4 paper and I just wrote things at each corner and in the middle. Who supports you? Who supports you when you're this? Who's influenced your life when you're this? Who came to be at your door? And because it was just, I was touching the 10% that was seeing their behavior, but what was happening was tumblos the red. So I said, our stories is like a drill. You hit rocks, you hit mud, you eat sand, you hit water until you come to that gold or that God is looking for to use. And a lot of us bury so much pain in there. That's another topic, so it's buried in with your, because that colors your behavior too. Worldview karama blood something. And I saw this Momaram now to carry to Mary and just down Karai Mokarai. Because it touched something in them that they've never talked about. And you'll find it in your churches. People will show you, they'll dress up, come, but they're struggling. You say a story blow. So for any pastors in your group, make your time, plan your weeks. Even when you sit there, I say to the other students, start thinking and then rank what your needs are, what you can do in your community. And if some people are passionate about starting counseling, you start with one or two. Send me information, send me, how I can fit into that. Go to any short workshops you are involved, talk Lodisla. There's very few, but just go. Even 1 week or 1 day, you could sim or something. Don't limit yourself. But in terms of making a church thriving, you as a pastor, you as a leader, you have to come down and be one of them. Harim story below. It's not good me preaching about them when they are only no gat toya, only no gat kai kai. If no turangulo ye me go clean him house, blow me go washing plate door. Sit down one time, me no counselor, me go let them all past them. So I said to one of them, if I don't go to church on Sunday, me Lord to finish one time more land law, conam law. Because service blow you walking here. And I remember one of my workers came back and said, Tandy, are you saying this? And I'm thinking, yes. Because wherever you are, you're ministering love, Lord Papa God. You ministering this love, compassion, Lord Papa God, Lord Papa. So it really got me when I said back to the students, I said, why isn't the church flourishing? Why isn't the church? We are just doing it's become a ritual. We just go around and around. It's become a club. It's become a club. Churches have become clubs where you just go, you lip service on a Sunday, you do it again next Sunday. So how can you change that? Because I know for a fact we live with these two worlds, Christian and Melanesian world. Okay? These two. They can go infinitely or stand, as I said, like a train track. They can go forever, but it's the church that have to build the bridges across so they can go across. And we start talking about this kind of stuff. If the church doesn't build that, then who else can it? Those two can go on forever like that with no middle ground law, confronting some of those issues in our cultures. Culture is good, but there's some cultures are not good practices. So as I was saying, I challenge you, any pastors amongst you and all of you, go back. What difference can you make? God is looking for radical disciples to be change agents. I think he sit on the side and he said, when are they going to get it? I'm looking for people we need some change. But then I will go back and say, I'm no wrong, blue blah. Because think no come blue blah. It's also become no come blue blah. But just start with a little bit, like an inch. Take an inch, and how much God can add the other 11 inches onto that. He's looking for commitment. And that's the other thing, because God is there. But a lot of us turn to the other things because we can see the results straight away. You can see magic, you can see people working, you can see healing. But for God, do we see results? You that's all by answering this. That is something, eh? And I think it's good for us to keep talking, to be talking about this with kindred spirit people, like-minded people. Even in the church, you're a pastor. Go and find another pastor, even if it's a Pentecostal or Nazarene pastor. If you to share him, it's like I'm hang alone. Walk him this la. Anyway, sorry, me no hello preach la. Yeah. But them good, them making me meeting thing, yeah. But I always say, I mean, no room, blah. Black simply clicks away. And the other classes have said that God be bold, God will honor that. God will honor that decision you're walking because no one is doing it. Make it first for you, and others will come on board. We need to take risks to be bold in making those steps. The little knowledge you get from CLTC, God will increase that to you. Commit that to Him. Am I right? Was that about answering your? You may got plan something lo ting lo but God is a good God. But we'll cover a lot of this in much more details during other lectures. So that's our mission, isn't it? To live God's truth in our daily lives. But when you live in a community where it's communal energy that flows within community, it's not an individualistic approaches to stuff. But some of us get dragged into that and we follow what others are doing also. But again, be strong, I think. I think that's the main thing. And I think for me is coming away, going back home, coming away, and through God's direction and leading in my own life. It's opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that we that are equipped to be the voices to those spaces where energy is lacking, to be the voices to bring change. Na me less penis lola lo puri lo bless. I've been in this ministry for 14 years and I'm tired penis. But God knows. When I sit here, you just see So much of our church is full of that stuff that the opposition has brainwashed them. You be part of that church. No one will find out you're doing this on my behalf. So they camouflage and do stuff within the church. Because Satan is full of tricks. But we need to be strong because that's our mission and God has called us. Hey, you may go here, you go malolo past them. You may cross to Pinisia. We'll go through this. Thank you for asking that question. It's a challenge to all of us. So we'll look at ministry implications. You bless stretching black past them or was where you will just go for the last half hour? You bless, just stand up and stretch. Come on, stand up. Me too, I have to stand up too, yeah, man.
It's sedih. Pas sedih. What?
It's good. There's not more slides now, so I'm good. We'll finish before then. So, but you missed that. So now we look at the ministry implications here. And again, as I said, I just left it at these slides, but then I broke it down to write more for you for your own learning. I could have just left it at this. That's what I did in the last PowerPoint, which I took down, and then added each point. So there's a bit of something for you guys to read. So the ministry implications there. If worldview is ignored, if you're just preaching at the behavior of people and people, because that's our intentions, we don't realize that that's what we do. We need to change. But do we target the very core of why people behave? If worldview is ignored, then this is one buzzword. You syncretism, which is the blending of different religion. We blend Christianity and Melanesian belief systems. I just put that in, but then I put it for, I said, no, I'll have to do the rest for the others. Then you have shallow faith, confusion, and if worldview is transformed, then there's genuineness in there. You become a genuine disciple. Deep cultural renewal happens slow life below you or in communities, and then a strong Christian witness. And then I went into this. So syncretism is this happens when people mix Christian beliefs with their old cultural or religious practices. For example, they might go to church but still follow traditional rituals that go against the Bible. And the result is a mixed faith that is not fully Christian and not fully tradition. Then you have shallow faith from that's not touched. People may know Bible stories or go to church, but their faith doesn't change their daily lives. Faith is more about rituals or appearances than a real relationship with God. So this is talking when worldview is ignored. And the third point to that is confusion. People feel unsure about what to believe or how to live because their old habits, their old beliefs and new Christian teachings clash. And this is where true discipleship probably has to come in, because you can come and preach at people and they accept Christ, but there's no follow-up. Okay, people, we're not seeing anything in this, so let's go back to our old ways. And this can make them doubt God or act inconsistently. So if worldview is transformed, then you see a different story, eh? There's genuineness, there's authentic, which means it's real. Faith becomes real and personal. And people start living like Jesus in their thoughts, words, and actions, not just following rules. Are we seeing that in our churches? Deep cultural renewal, is that happening? Then you might talk about culture within culture, in passing law place, but there's culture of youth culture, music culture, clothes culture. You can name anything that the influences from globalization, from mobilizing people from province to province. It is starting to change a lot of that stuff, isn't it? So culture can not only pass in law place, but You look at all the internet influence and what it brings to our communities also. But when you talk about culture, then you think your immediate thinking goes to passing law place. But you can look at all this latest 21st century culture that have been brought in through other outside influences. Because culture changes. So people can keep good parts of their culture while changing parts that don't match God's ways. And this helps communities grow stronger, fairer, and more loving without losing their cultural identity. A lot of us go to church, we are still very much Melanesians, it's still very strong. We still hold it deeply within us. Even for those of us who don't live there, we just witnessed through the independence celebration here. Man, all get a man na dog na kakaruk na all get a come out lo Danis, lo Brisbane. Everyone from the Asaro madmen to all grass skirts number fly number mibla tola weri mol lap lap Danis number all central all Bougainville, all kind. Highlands, the colors. It was a very colorful day for us here 2 weeks ago. Identity stuff, passing stuff. So those kind of things, they're okay on their own. Because it's still, culture is culture. It's good to, that's part of who we are. We express ourselves through that. But it's when they said, oh, let's go and do this stuff first before we do that, then you start questioning that. Should just be neutral in that sense. But then we're deeply spiritual people in that sense, and we connect to those things beside God. So strong Christian witness. Third one, people's lives show God's love and truth when we minister to that, when worldview is not ignored. Worldview is transformed. Others can see Christ in us and are drawn to God because their faith is real and practical. So you can see that people will be drawn to you. Hey, man, you don't have to say anything, but your action, your mannerism, how you choose things, stuff will attract people. Strong Christian witness. I remember playing cards with my one talks in Mosby when I was working at the Lens Department. One man coming to, I Tandy, also I'm different there. Now all Mary Lolo to ya. All talking me in Bella Lol. I play to all some one. I play no Sangoloto. But this guy actually could see that I was different. I'm just using legally a topic set example. People will be drawn to you because something is different. And that wasn't the first time someone had said that. People will say that pastor is really good. Let's go to that church. We do that here too. Hey, pastor, let's just go and go to their church. I do that. Go to other churches, even though we've got our own churches. Roland is actually preaching there on Sunday. Yeah. So let's be drawn to that. And within community, because everyone, you don't move out of community, everyone's just there daily. So how can you make that that people have that kind of laid back attitude of how now you make him different activity, all youth, all young people, all men's group, women's groups. It takes energy and it takes a lot of time to do that, but you've got to have people to back you up. So those are the things that changes if worldview is transformed. Okay, you see that this everything is authentic, it's real, it's you're living that life that Christ meant for you to live. And then I've put this little table for make it easier for you guys to see the comparison between if worldview is ignored and if worldview is transformed by the power of God's words, by the ministry, by your practice within that, your faith. How do you transform that? So if worldview is ignored, then you've got those mixed beliefs. So it's just sort of sums up what I've just talked about there. So I've actually got some questions there, but we'll leave that. And I'm just going to go through the reflection first that you have to do for your 1 week. So we can go through that again because people were saying, how do you do that? You just write as if you're writing a journal in your exercise book. Just type it up and send it to me in your own words. And probably by the end of today, you would have a bit more survey information of how worldview, what is worldview, what impacts it. And you can see that we are born into something there, and the worldview sits in the middle, and everything else impacts that. So the worldview is the deep level of belief that's 90% emerge in the roots of that tree, or the iceberg that we don't see. That's that iceberg, that the 10% that was sticking out that caused that that horrific accident with the Titanic, that big boat. I don't know if anyone has seen that movie, because it was going along and that little bit that was sticking out of the water, the boat, big ship, tribal boats direct. Hit him this lana, boat now sink. And hundreds of people died. This is not recently, but many years ago. So that's coming to that, why we use that metaphor of the iceberg. Root blame sinalo wara, but lili tasol sinal. So you left the tree, but you left the iceberg to Lord Islam. So your own reflection, in your own words, defined, explain. Wanimna worldview minim lo you, okay? Write about one example from your daily life that shows how your worldview shapes what you do or believe. So what could be one of your example you think? If I have respect as a value that I value that comes from that worldview, then that affects what I do today. That's one blind example. Okay. So you might think along other things. I'm just thinking of respect. And that's one thing that I say, if you take respect out of me, then forget it. You can take everything else but leave respect. So I'm just giving an example there, but you might have others, how that affects your decision in what you do today, in your daily life, that shows how your worldview shapes what you do or believe. So what would be one example of you planting him? Anyone got any example to? We've got 15 minutes just to bounce off some ideas, so I can help you guys. Anyone got any bounce some ideas to help you guys. Anyone got any
We got talk.
sorry?
We got talk. I've got a talk to talk about.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As a Christians, as we look at how the world is moving, Christians, we should not be isolated in our church areas only, but I think it is up to us to go out beyond the community, the church, and we involve with the community to teach them how the world is moving and how we should manage this world, because God has given us this world for us to be care for the world. That is because the world that everything that we care for them, they look after us like Cocoa Garden. If we look after the Cocoa Garden, then the Cocoa Garden, Cocoa will look after us. If not, we are not no longer in this world. We might be gone out in heaven. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone else got any? I think just talking about it too will help others that probably are struggling to understand that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Emric from Barnes. About the slide on ministry implications, we have just looked at if worldview is ignored. Under that title, there are three important points there: syncretism, sale of faith, and confusion. I would like all of us to understand some of the teachings that going around our country. Just recently, yesterday night, I had a conversation with TSF students at Form Technical College, and then they have said that uh, if, uh, if if all of us into the field of ministry, na suppose one pla raskol kam na paiti one pla blue me, are we going to involve and uh, funds them again or retaliate to them? And then they said yes. And then one of the term they call that type of reaction is Christ fans or Jesus fans or holy walls. All been dog. So we can save the life of that person. Or Christian fans or dislagay na. So although same na they said true. Some of them they believe that. So I'm confused. It is part of a sale of faith or confusion because they don't know what to believe, because in culturally they have the faith that the life of people is very important. So they have to save the life of people. So if one black bagara, people must save him. Nungkut Islaman tu natanim belet na all kill him. When what will be his eternity? Or when by kissing eternity belong him low, so we have to also defend the life of that person. We have to fight that, and that is not sin. They said it's a holy fans or Christ fans. On behalf of Christ, people are fighting him. Although same na, yeah, that is big issue. All still happening. So how can we integrate that human understanding with the Christian view?
So it's coming that far to they use it as a Christ punch.
Yeah.
My God.
Defend themselves.
And big bla woglo you blaya. Lo look sawe lo sablawe lo. You know, people express themselves in those ways, but what would you do as a pastor, as a Christian? Do you take part in that, or you find a way in a peaceful way of reconciliation or peaceful place, local conversation. There's a lot of places where the church could create spaces like that for genuine conversation. Sorry, was someone talking there? Le, you black out story, yeah? Sorry, I thought someone was wanting to talk. Yeah, but that's really interesting for you. Beginning you talk, Lord Isla. So you start to think, you start to see.
Then I just answer them like this. I've just quote the scripture on, I mean, the story of Peter and Jesus during his betrayal time, as they come to kill Peter, kill Jesus or betray Jesus. Peter redirected against them and then struck the ear of Malchus.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then I stand on the point where Jesus replied him, you son of snake or say then come back side lumem to kosema. That is the point where me say help him all ting. Meaning Jesus say me no give one good blessing talk long time time all I come fight him Jesus. Say me talking Peter you beginning to say then that means if one blah you mean you may make a ministry and one black and fight him, you mean like defend him all that person actually receive that name as a son of Satan because I'm reiterate him against him again. So if such teaching come, do not lose of that. Still stand firm now. You must concentrate on ministry and do not so involve for this latum. Yeah.
I think this is where real conviction comes in. Like even when there's some of the students that, Mama, me black by two, pastor by two. Me black go by pastor behind black mo shallow law too. So it's yeah, so I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm hearing what the other students were saying to me. Me black okay most them too. So where's your conviction? Where's the transformation? Has the true transformation happened there? And if the transformation has happened, has it been redeemed by that supreme grace and love, Papa God? So like what I was saying before in terms of how you would do that, you would define that worldview. You define worldview first. So in a worldview is a way a person understands and interprets life, the world around them and their place in it. It is like a lens. It's like what we've said. You can go through that and pick out your own version of what you would describe. But you first have to define worldview. That's the definition. It's like a lens through which people see reality, shaping their values and belief systems, believe their choices and how they behave. That's the definition. And an example of from your daily life, you can say like what I was saying. If my worldview is shaped by the belief that God created all people in his image, then I will treat others with respect if you're coming from that space, okay, and dignity, even when I disagree with them, okay. This affects what I do every day. So if you're coming from that Christian point of view, like choosing to forgive someone who wronged me instead of holding a grudge, because my worldview teaches me that forgiveness reflects God's love. But that's from a Christian viewpoint. So if you're taking it from a Melanesian, from a Hela perspective, from a Tolai perspective, how would I do that? I see that because what wrong in my culture is that form of restitution. What wrong in the Tolai culture, I'll do that because God has enabled me to be that, because I can reconcile it through the word porong where we share, exchange money or food. So you can contextualize a lot of that stuff. And I'm saying it here from a Christian. This is just an example how you will do your reflection. You define the worldview first, and then you give your example from your daily life. So I've just read out that example from, if you want to come from there, but I've switched it to a perspective, a Tolai perspective. For example, if my worldview is shaped by the belief that God created, but in my Tolai, you can switch But in my Tolai belief system, we have that too. Respect is number one. And if I have respect for my people, then I honor those people, because God respects everyone. So that's how you would. I'm just giving you some tips how you can do your reflection on that. So you can come from a Christian viewpoint and go all the way that, or you can do that and come from your own tribe, own cultural perspective, and merge the two of them also, if you want to do that. So that's what the question is asking for you, or for you to do. In your own words, define worldview and write about one example. So the example is just I read out there, okay? From your daily life that shows how your worldview shapes what you do. Or you could say, you could use giving. Reciprocity is something within Melanesian culture. God does it, He gives. You can take the scripture, and there's a lot of matching up with the scripture and what we do. Because if we give, God will bless us. Because my core value in what is one of giving, sharing, that came up in your something you believe low culture below you, that came up in some of the feedback yesterday, that sharing and giving and caring. So you heard each other's talking about that yesterday. So take some of those and put it in what you shared yesterday. You can actually put it in there as an example. But first you have to define that worldview, how you understand worldview. It's a way a person understands and interprets life, how you define that topic cell or M.Worldview and Matagalasia, you look through those. If these classes have dirty, by me no look good, by me no read him or looking man good or read him on him low paper. Like, it has to be clean for me to do that. So that's an example of that. If my worldview is shaped by those beliefs, then it affects me in this. You write him lo talk blue you yet. I'm clear, I'm all right. So at least but thank you for sharing some of that stuff. So that's, it's like another thing that the church has to, it's like a little fire that's been lit up. That how do the church take that fire out in terms of Christ punch, or is that using Christ in vain, God's name in vain, or blaspheming that, blasphemy and kamlo dislatu, or use the name of Christ as an excuse to do things like that. So big all pastors, yeah. You know what pastors, that's all you lot of man, you picking blow papa God, you be part of that too. So is that clear about the reflection bit there? I think at the end of this, what we've done, and there's a conclusion there, everyone has a worldview. It guides life. Worldview shapes culture and answers questions. And as Christian leaders in Melanesia, build worldview on God's word. We need to do that and transform communities from inside out. Because you know the story of your people, you build from inside out. Outsiders come and they tap around at the back, but you're part of the community. You know your community, you know your people. You build from there out. And the effective ministry must engage worldview, not just behavior.
I have one question from Vance.
Okay. So that's where we stop there. So is that clear on the on the reflection little exercise, like walking 100 to 150 words. And don't forget your introduction bit, that can be another 50, 100 words. Just those main points, your education level, you blow where you married low, you married Thomas beginning. Just throw in what you can tell me about yourself. Okay? You get all of bands, you like Kisim. Did that help about the reflection exercise? You define the worldview, what it means for you, and you take an example. Okay? If my worldview is shaped by my belief in God, you can come from that from a Christian perspective, or you can come from your own tribe. I can say, if my worldview is shaped by my Tolai knowledge systems in terms of conflict resolution,